big things that we have to do with SAS Enterprise Miner. One is as we bring in the data, we have to make sure that we tell it that it is actually transactional data. Right? So how is SAS Enterprise Miner going to know that different rows potentially correspond to the same person, the same transaction? Well, we've got to tell it, okay, this is transactional data. We're going to have to set an ID variable, and we're going to have to set a target variable. We've already kind of talked about this. And then we have different types of association things that we can work on. So we can say you have to have at least a 5% support. So this is going to have to happen at least 5% of your data. Or the minimum confidence, we have to have at least 10% for our confidence, for you to actually show the rules. We have the maximum number of items. Right? So you could just say, you know what, I only want to see 2 item sets. If one item, then another item. Or you could leave it up to 4, and then it could be if 1 item, then 3 items. Or if 2 items, then 2 items. Or if 3 items, then 1 item. So any combination of 4. And you could do more, but then the rules just get more and more complex. Some of the output you're going to see, right? You're going to have a chart that's kind of showing you all the confidence percentages. How confident are we? We have this right hand and left hand of the rule. So the if is going to be the left hand, the then is going to be the right hand. You can kind of see the different values, and this is actually support. So you can kind of figure out what is happening here, which variables, which rules you like best. This visualization shows us the lift. This isn't a really great data set as far as the lift goes. The expected confidence and how it kind of changes. The confidence for different, and these are just going to be the rule index. So they just sort of the rules. So the way this line looks means absolutely nothing. And so it'll be interactive here in a few minutes. The way it looks doesn't mean a whole lot. This is just the order in which SAS assigned the rule. And a lot of times what will happen is rule 1, right, so this is the confidence here. Rule 1 may be if pen, then take. And rule 2, or the rule next to it, may be if take, then pen. And so one may be a lot of confidence and the other one may be very little confidence. And that's kind of what gives it this back and forth kind of look. So I just wanted to kind of give you kind of some of the highlights of things that we're looking for. We'll also be able to see this thing called a link graph. So what this link graph is doing is this kind of combining different things together. So the bigger the bubble, the more, what is the more support for this one? And here there's just kind of like different sections. So here we're talking, we've got soda, Heineken, can't read that one, olives and crackers. And so these are things that are very well connected together. Over here, down here we have things that are more ice cream and sodas. Here's beer. The beer is all over the place. Apparently beer is very, very popular in this data set. But we can just kind of have like different little clusters. Not clusters in the way we thought of in the past, but just different clusters of things that are grouping and associating together. Different way to visualize. Let's see what else we have. The way that we're going to see this output is you're going to get to see a rules table. Within this rules table, it's actually kind of fun. So it has, and I blew it up because it's hard to see. Right, so you have the number of relations. So that's how many variables are present. We've got the expected confidence, and it calculated it for us. So we don't actually have to do the calculation. We have the actual confidence. We've got the support, the lift, how many times this is happening in our data set, and then the actual rule itself. So our very first top rule, and this is sorted by the amount of support, happens to be if sardines and ice cream, then Heineken and Coke. I need to come up with it. If sardines and ice cream, then Heineken and Coke. And that happens, it has a support of 11, almost 12%. Yes.
So if you're looking at all those, like, would you say, like, okay, like, the best rule is the one that has the most confidence in? Or, like, how do you...
So it's not necessarily the most confidence. It's not necessarily the highest lift. It's not necessarily the highest support.
Okay.
But it's what are you interested in, right? So what I'll do is, so like, this one's sorted by support. This one's sorted by confidence. This one's sorted by lift. And I kind of look at all of these things. And it's really great because all you do is click it and sorts it for you, so it's wonderful. Okay. So maybe you're interested in which one has the most lift. It's giving me that most extra gain. Right? So if sardines and apples, then peppers and avocado. Okay, that's happening with a lot of lifts. So what we're seeing here is that when we would expect people just to buy the sardines and the apples together, then buying peppers and avocados is happening a lot. When we're looking at the support, just what happens the most often, so our most often pairings are people who are buying sardines and ice cream, and then they're going and buying Heineken and Coke. So that's happening a lot in my data set. I have 117 times I have transactions where these 4 items are purchased together. Okay. When I go back to the lift, I have higher lift, but that only happens when the transactions only have that 90 times. So I have less of those. Okay. So bigger impact when it happens, but doesn't happen as often. As far as the confidence, if somebody buys sardines and ice cream and chicken, then I'm confident they're going to get Coke with it. So in 100% of the transactions that I look through, I don't. In 100% of the transactions that the software has looked through, they found that 116 of these, sardines, ice cream, and chicken, all had Coke on that same transaction. Who knew? So this is kind of the different ways that we'll look at this.
Did you explain the expected confidence again?
No, apparently I don't have any clue what that means. So the expected confidence, right, so the way we were calculating it was the amount of times that we had the transaction. So in this case, it's going to be the amount of times we see the consequence, Heineken and Coke, out of our total number of transactions. So we see Heineken and Coke, I don't know how many times because we don't have that just written down anywhere. But if we actually went and we could figure out, if you looked at the left hand, so you can actually expand this and you can see a left hand rule and a right hand rule. So if you actually found every time that Heineken and Coke are in the right hand rule, then you can divide by the total number of observations, total number of transactions that we have. And that's what your expected confidence is. So really what we're looking at is, our expected confidence over here is 17. So people buying Heineken and Coke, just Heineken and Coke, we're expecting that to happen 70% of the time. When somebody buys sardines and ice cream, then getting the Heineken and Coke, that's actually happening 77% of the time. When we take our confidence, divided it by our expected confidence, that's where our lift is getting bigger. So if we go back, so you'll see, so here we've got the difference of 17 and 77. Let's see if we go lift. So here we have a higher lift, and the percentage there, if we did the calculation, is actually going to be a little bit better. Right, so we have 71 divided by 12, and that's going to give us a higher lift.
So the higher lift is better. And what is it? Is that like, how do you interpret that? Like 5.6?
So the 5.6 is just so, for somebody who buys sardines and apples, they are 5.5 times more likely to buy peppers and avocado than just your average customer. So that's the idea of the lift in this case. So those are kind of the different ways we'll look at it. So we've got pictures, we've got rules. So your assignment is going to come into, you're going to run this analysis, and then you're going to look at the rules, and you're going to see what's interesting and what's not, and kind of write a story about it. You can use any of these. You can use sorting by lift, sorting by support, sorting by confidence. Any of those sorts, you can try all of them. You can see what makes sense, what doesn't. This is all food stuff. So most things, whether they make sense or don't. And then you can kind of talk about why and how you could use this to potentially change the script. Yes?
So we have absolutely no control about the left-hand side, right? If condition, we have absolutely no control at all. We cannot, like, if apples, then what is likely to be the rule? We cannot check it.
So you could sort. So right now, I've just sorted by the highest lift, the highest support.
Right.
You can impose that condition, and then you can sort through these rules. If you sort through the rules, like in this case, like by alphabetical order, I didn't do that. Then you can actually find, here's all the rules where alphabet is on the left, or alphabet. Here's all the sort alphabetically. Then you can find all the rules where apple is on the left-hand side, and then yes, you can see. And you can find out, well, it doesn't have really good lift, or it doesn't have really good support, and that's why it's not making the top 10.
The reason I'm asking is to give the same example of Amazon.
Yeah.
So you go and buy a particular product on Amazon. That particular product might not have a rule with a very high lift, but still the very fact that if there is a rule existing that has to get displayed.
Then you can use it. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so the rules. So I've just given you the top 10. There may have been 200 rules here. So let's get into the software. We'll see exactly what it looks like. So got our generic grocery. Here's our idea. So just for fun, because I haven't played in Tableau for a little while, right? You have a new data set. You can still go and explore this data set, right? So I happen to know that I have 20 product names, but what kind of things, if I'm looking at associations between products, what can I expect to see, right? So here all I did was just frequencies, right? So Heineken does have kind of a little bit of a bigger bubble than others. Right? If I look here, so this was actually just the count of the frequency, right? So what happened, so Bordeaux doesn't happen a lot. So I shouldn't probably expect it to come up in my rules a lot. Heineken, right? My 602. So it's like my most frequent purchased item in my transactions. So I just did a little data exploration. Again, I went to Tableau because you could do this in SAS again. Or any other software, but I just thought I'd have some fun with Tableau. And again, we're going to try and figure out what should be in their center aisle and can we produce some rules. Oh look, we kind of already did this. I just wrote it out. So then the other thing that I did, so that was when I had relations of 4. I changed it to just having 2. Just an if and a then, right? And so then, things that came out, so now you'll start to see I have a higher support.
So that's something you can control.
That's one of the things you can control. So I can control how many pieces do I want in my rule. Do I want 2, 3, 4, 5? The more you do, the smaller your support's going to be, because now I'm having to find a transaction that happens with all 5 of these items, or all 4 of these items. Here, I just have to find a transaction that has 2 items, so my support goes up. Okay. So here, my highest support is buying Heineken and crackers. My highest confidence, my confidence goes up a little bit more, because again, I'm just looking for 2 things. Maybe not as helpful, maybe more helpful, depending on what you're interested in. So here, it's like if you're buying an artichoke, you're also buying Heineken. And that's happening, that's an 82.6, right? So when we had the 4, the sardines, we actually had 100% confidence. But here, this is happening 252 times, whereas our other one was happening like 90 times, right? So there's kind of no right or wrong. This is an exploratory data analysis type thing. Okay, we're just looking at all the different options. If ice cream then Coke has a high lift, but you'll notice the highest lift here isn't as high as the highest lift with the 4 items. So our lift has gone down because our expected confidence gets to go up because we're looking at fewer items. Okay, you'll just start to play with this and kind of see the relations and how things change. So let's see what our highest support, so the highest that we have here is like 366 times. We'll find transactions that have both Heineken and crackers. And if you look right below it, it's cracker then Heineken. The only difference is the lifts are the same, the supports are the same. The thing that actually changes here is the confidence. So really, if Heineken then cracker, I've got a 61% confidence. But if I did if cracker then Heineken, I actually have a 75% confidence. So really, I'd probably rather switch those 2. I'd rather have a rule that says if crackers then Heineken. And now I'm more confident about it. I get the same support, I get the same lift, but my expected confidence has changed. Or sorry, my confidence has changed.
Why is that? What?
That's just the order that you have it in.
Really?
So kind of the calculation that we did,
Oh, okay.
right? So if x then y is not always the same as if y then x.
Yes.
Yeah, but then the expected confidence is also higher. I think this is what really makes sense. It doesn't matter if this confidence is high. Because since the expected confidence is higher anyway.
Right.
So I mean, I don't really see how that is. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's cracker, high necker, or high necker cracker because the lift is the same.
It's still a larger difference between confidence and expected confidence, though.
The percentage is the same. No? That's why
Yeah, it's like 16.
Yeah.
Well, so go back to what would we actually do with this? Like, so if we have if Heineken then Cracker, or if Cracker then Heineken, would that change our business decision?
No, not in terms of placing the leadership.
Right. So the thing that would change is if I was sorting things by confidence, then I could get one higher than the other. Right. So if I sort, so this is sorted by support, and they just happen to be next to each other. But now if I sort by confidence, now those two things aren't next to each other anymore. So if I wanted to find the pairs where I was most confident, then I could start looking at, and the confidence would get one higher than the other. Business decision-wise, it really doesn't matter. Yes.
So, it may have just happened one time, but say you had a reversal, and I know those can be different, but does that always mean the support and the lift are going to be the same? Or those always be reversible?
Based on this, I want to say yes.
Because I mean, it is just the same number.
But I want to convince myself of that for a hunt. Like, yes, I think so.
Yes, but
But I want to convince myself of that before I say yes. So I'm going to say, yeah, I think so.
I mean, yeah, for all these things, I guess.
I mean, so there's a lot of good evidence supporting that. So I want to go back to like the calculations I just did and see if that's actually going to be confirmed or if it's going to be different. So then as far as what should I pick, just kind of filling out this table. So let's do some association analysis. So if you want to play along, I'm going to be in SAS Enterprise Minor. I'm not going to do the Sam's Club data yet. I'll get to that one in a second. Well, I guess we could just go straight to the Sam's Club data. Do you want to do a little data set and then the Sam's Club, or you just want to go straight to the Sam's Club?
we could do
So this is actually the old Sam's Club.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So yeah, no, this is the old Sam's Club, and it's actually a table that I don't even know if you guys worked on. And it will be just for like this association analysis kind of use.
UA or WCO?
Do what?
UA or WCO?
It's the UA.
You're not
I get it. We're okay with this. All right. So let's do some SAS Enterprise Minor. And we'll jump in. We'll just go straight to Sam's Club because you guys already know how to import data. So there's no difference in if we use a small data set, you already know how to do that. So go ahead and log into Enterprise Minor. If you want to follow along, if you don't, that's fine too. So you've kind of already seen the output. You've gotten the gist. Now we're going to get into the details. I'm going to open a project, and you guys are my Wednesday class. So way back in, if you do the SAS EM tutorial 1, like the intro to the SAS EM tutorial, it tells you how to log into and add some project start code to get in access to our database. It's also on the bottom half of your decision tree assignment. And today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get into the Sam's Club database. So it'll be a very similar process to due diligence. So when you first open up SAS EM, So you've got whatever you called your project, it's going to be highlighted. You want to go to the project start code and click the 2, 3 little ellipses. Yes, you're going to see my password. Don't use my password. I've thought of many other ways to figure out how not to make that happen, and I. So what you're going to do, so this is the one that we're going to use this time, if you want to follow along with the Sam's Club data. So the statement is, here we go. Nice and big where you can actually see it. Okay. So it's LIBNAME, so it's the live name, so it's a library name. I actually, quick edit, I actually call mine Terra Sam's. You can call it Terra Test, you can call it whatever you want to. But so we're actually going to get onto the Teradata server. We're not going to get on the SQL server. Then, so it's Terra Sam's, it's Teradata server equals, and that nice little extension, single quotes around the extension. We're going to cross our fingers if this actually works for you all. If not, we'll do something a little different. So it's user equal, and it should just be your username.
Is that within the quotes or?
So user does not have quotes around it. So server equals, you have single quotes around the server destination. User equals, and then you'll type in your username here, no quotes. Password equals, and your password does have quotes around it. The database is going to equal UA Sam's Club. So what you should see should look something like this. The live name should be in blue. Your numbers should be kind of in a pinkish, purplish color. Your password should be in a pinkish, purplish color. Once you have that all typed in, is everybody good? We're going to cross our fingers and see what happens when you click OK. Or you click Run Now or OK. Either one's fine.
Doesn't do it.
How's it working?
Is
Good.
it supposed to do something?
So if you click OK, no, it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
If you click Run Now, something should happen. So if you click OK, what happens if you click OK?
It just closes.
It just closes.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the project start code.
Click on-
I already ran mine, so that's why it didn't work. Is Run Now highlighted for you guys?
No.
The
It was
first
the
time, yes.
first
but-
It was, and then I clicked OK.
Oh.
Just make a small change and see.
Well, let's see what happens. I feel like we need to run it.
You have to close it out.
Does it go around?
Yeah, you can make a small change and then it comes back.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just like hit something. Like, add a space. Try Run Now. Let's see Run Now. See what happens. So if I run now, it doesn't do anything. If you run now, what happens?
I got an error.
Error.
Yeah, I get it.
Error. 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 Well, this is where I didn't think this all the way through. Okay. For funsies, I haven't done this, so we don't know if it's going to work. We're going to try the alerts. So in your, I'm just going to see if I can type, if I have it, because I have it right here. Let's see if we can make it bigger. Okay. So these two lines right here, I want you to try. So let's try typing that in. Again, exactly how it appears. Is that big enough? Exactly how it appears. Quotation, double quotations. Even if it doesn't make sense where the double quotation's in. Exactly how you see it. case, I'm pretty sure your username and password is going to be your typical username and password.
Especially on SYS lines.
I can be on 1 line or 2 lines, it doesn't matter. 1 line is perfectly fine, that's how I have it in my code. Whenever you get there, go ahead and push run now and see what happens. If you didn't get an error, then life is good.
I did.
Now, it doesn't look like anything happened, and that's okay.
Like ran for a second and then the run now button came back up.
That should still be okay. As long as it ran for a second and didn't give you an error, then life should be good. Nothing really happens at this point that you can see.
So they're not so, oh.
Okay. But yeah, nothing really happens at this point that you can really see. I just ran some code.
Error. It took a minute for the error to show up.
It gave you an error. Type exactly like I have up here. The right spaces and everything. There we go. Errors. No errors.
Now we'll go back up to project section.
How are we doing? Anybody else getting errors? Alright. So if you didn't get an error, then what should have happened is now if you go to data sources and you right click on data source, it should let you create a new data source. And it says, hey, do you want a SAS table? And you're like, yeah, SAS table would be great, thanks. So you click next. It's like, well, what SAS table do you want? So I'm going to browse for it. And now what you should see is a library called My Data. Yeah. And if you double click on My Data, look at all that Dillard's information. It's so fun. All right.
What did you do with data sources?
Right click. Create a data source. Next.
Do you want a SAS table?
Browse. Yes. Next. Browse.
These data sources are only for me, right? I mean, I also created my data.
Yes, so my data is the library name that you're pointing to get to the Dillard's data set on, in this case, it's SQL Server. So if you guys log into SQL Server and hit the UA Dillard's database, you would be seeing the exact same thing. Yes.
So this is how you connect to a lot of the data sources like that aren't Excel files.
Yeah.
So this is
So like if I would have had, so in the past we used to have like an ISYS 5843 folder right here. And these would be like all, so like last semester was 5503, here's all those SAS data sets that we had. Yes.
I didn't get an error, but I have different tables.
You have different tables. What did you do?
Have the same one.
You guys have different teams.
this is only read or you also write back to the.
It should just be green.
I didn't get an error.
You got the same thing?
You guys did.
Anyway, not that.
Go back to.
Alright, so for those of you who are good to go, don't do anything. Right now, just don't do anything. And the reason I'm telling you not to do anything is because we're not going to do association analysis on dillards.
Screenshot of that? No, that. Take a screenshot of what you actually see when you do it. We're going to have to figure that out. Because you're going to need access to that. That's fine. I don't know what Mikey is and figure out.
But you're not the only one.
No, I can't get into the ISYS, like all those, like the rooms you're supposed to get into.
Yeah.
I got the active, my card got deactivated. So like
They
last
don't like you.
last semester I had to like,
Oh, I see.
Alright. So, I thought I was going to let you guys follow along. But now you just get to watch. Sorry. Because I don't know why I didn't get you access to the Teradata server. The SQL server,
Users garage.
I wonder if... What is our SQL server? Yeah.
There you have it.
What happens if we go
But if you don't want to, I'll.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's just like. Yeah.
No, I just.
no, also, I'm just gonna pay my
Oh, yes, it's good.
it's I was like $12,000. It took 2 seconds for him to fix it, but I was in shock for a little more than 2 seconds.
Okay, we can fix it. We can fix it. Okay, so because we have the data on both our Teradata server and on our SQL server, if you go back to your start code, so what you just typed that got you into the UA Dillards, yes? Where did mine go? We'll do it again. So copy it, paste it. Instead of saying my data, we're going to change the library name because you don't want it to be Dillards, right? So call it. So I'm going to call it SQL because it's the SQL server, and I'm going to call it. You can call it SAMS. You can call it Club. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I'll call it Club. Everything just stay the same. The ODBC, the complete equals, the drivers, the SQL server, your username, your password. Instead of the database being UA Dillards, we're just going to call the database UA SAMS Club. The server stays the same. Everything else stays the same. So the only thing you've done is you've renamed your library so you know which library it is. So I called mine SQL Club. You can call it anything. You can call it Bob if you want to. It just can't be over 8 characters. And then you want to change the database to UA_SAMS Club. Okay. And then run now. And let's see what happens. Run now. Something happens. It goes. The run now goes away. It comes back. So again, all I changed was I changed my library name. So, and then I changed my database, so now I'm connecting to UA Sam's Club. UA underscore Sam's Club. Click OK. So now go and try to create a new data source. So we're going to right click. Are we good?
Are we replacing or adding one more line?
I'm getting an error.
You're getting an error.
Mine?
So I just added a new line. I just copy and pasted, added a new line, tweaked my library name, tweaked the database name. I'd make this bigger, but I can't. Library name, database name.
So this is probably like. but does
There's
it let
no
you-
dumb questions.
So does it let you use like access like two databases like simultaneously? Like if we were just like adding those, will that like mess up?
It will not mess up what you're doing. No. So if it worked for Dillard's, it should still be good. It'll just let you access. So like this, now I have access to the SQL Server Dillard's, the SQL Server Sam's Club, and the Teradata Sam's Club.
Okay.
So I've got access to 3 different databases now.
Okay.
So you won't access them simultaneously, but it will give you access simultaneously. Yeah.
Okay.
How are we going? Okay. Yes. Yes.
So you just copied and pasted.
So I just copied and pasted the thing that I already had there. That you guys were like, yeah, I got into Dillard's. So I just copied and pasted what got me into Dillard's. I changed the library name, and I changed the database name.
So when I do that, it changes the font to like green, and then it like tweaks out when I start thinking.
Good. I'm gonna sneak a right here.
So,
Good.
so like I copied and pasted, and then I did this. So I tried to change it. Like, goes back and forth.
Yes, that makes sense.
Is that okay?
So,
It's all caps.
because I'm standing next to it. And that's the same even if you put it.
Yeah, that's not the same thing.
So you guys still have the same tables? Okay. So something's happening there. So you got the right one. Okay. So I have, he sent me a screenshot, so I'll add your name. Alright, everybody else? Errors. Okay, so first you did. Okay. Okay, so get rid of the third one. So the one that says Teradata, get rid of that because you guys don't have access to it. Perfect. And then it runs. Okay. Get rid of the Teradata because that's going to mess you guys up because apparently you guys don't have access to Teradata. And that's okay. You've got access to the SQL Server. Life is good. So everybody other than you two have. Okay. So if you go in now, see, look, we're troubleshooting, and now you won't have to troubleshoot this all by yourself when you're at home. Okay, so now we're going to right click on our data source. We're going to create a data source. Data source, create data source. Stats table, yes. Browse. And so now you should have both. You should have both a, what do you guys have? A My Data, and that My Data is actually getting you into the Dillard's database. And now you should have an, whatever you called it, an SQL club. So these two different things that are the ODBC, you should have 2 of those. Yes? Yes. So you've got one, so My Data is what you're going to use for your Dillard's assignment for A5. The SQL club, so this is my Sam's Club data I'm going to use for the example today. If you double click on the SQL club, you should have all sorts of SAM's data stuff. And you know why I use Teradata? Because it has the table that I want that SQL doesn't. So what we could do, we're interested in this item scan. Right? That item scan has 42 million records in it. It's going to take a little while. So since we only have 20 minutes of class left, you've gotten into our databases. You will be able to do your assignments. Kick back, relax, watch what Dr. Kiefer does. You are welcome to try this with the item scan table. Open it up, see how long it takes it to import. Go for it. I'm going to get to cheat because I have access to the one I actually want to have access to and practice with.
So for our assignment, it'll be a similar, like, 2 hours of import.
Yes, yes.
So we'll just have to wait.
Or sample. Sampling's a good idea. I'll show you how to sample here in a second.
Data source within the S if you want to create a sample data set.
There you go. So, there's several ways you can do it.
Select that table and put-
An easy way you can do it. So I'm going to go through, so whether you're on,
Exported to us.
What would you suggest for a sample data set? Like, what's a good sample?
so it depends on the size of your data set, right? So if I've got 70 million records,
Right.
and I want to get 7,000 of them,
I mean, so I guess that's what I'm asking. Like,
Right.
what is a percent? Like, what is a number that we should look for as far as records? Because this is 48 million records.
At least,
Right.
I would say at least 3,000, because that's what we did.
you can do, really, the idea is just what's going to work efficiently. So I would start with a small, tiny data set, right? Get 3,000, get 7,000, right? So do 0.1, right? So if you're doing a really small data set, a really small sample, do 1%.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. Okay. So I'm going to,
7,000 rows.
where is, okay. So I'm going to import this warehouse, so it's actually going to work with what I want to do for the next few minutes. You can import whatever data set that you want to import for your assignment from the Diller's database. As you're importing data, so we said, yes, we want a SAS table. We went, we browsed, we got it in. So it's like, okay, here's the table that you're bringing in. Here's the type of data that it is. Here's the number of variables. Here's the observations. So in this case, I've got 4 million records. You can dig into the metadata. You can dig into the metadata. And when you dig into the metadata, that doesn't help you out a whole lot, but it can say if there's a missing variable, you can like reduce what you're bringing in. Really, I wouldn't mess with the metadata. I just leave it as basic and let it do its thing. So it's going to kind of see, it's going to read the variable, see what's going on. It says, here's all your data. Great, data. So we have all of this data. I'm just going to go ahead and import all of this data just so I can show you how I'm going to use it. You could do some stuff here and minimize what you're bringing in. So if you think about it from the Diller's data set, you may only want to bring in certain columns, certain variables. And this is where you can minimize how much is actually being pulled in. I'm going to bring everything in. I'm going to go to next. And here it says, do you want to create a sample data set? So you could actually create a data set and get a smaller percentage or just a certain number of rows. So if you wanted 3,000 or 7,000 rows, you could do that right here as you're importing the data set. That's going to give you a range of
The
amounts.
percentage doesn't allow below 1.
Do what?
1% is the least it's allowed.
1% is the least you can do. So if you want something smaller than 1%, you've got to change it to the number of rows.
And it's 7,000 on still going.
It's going to take a little bit. It shouldn't take that long. Okay, so I'm not going to create a sample data set for this one. I'm going to click next. So I'm going to go ahead to start with, and I'm going to import this as raw data. And the raw data is what you're going to want for your Diller's data set. I could change this to transaction, because this is a transaction data set. Okay, so I can either change it here, or I'm going to show you another place where you can change it. So right now I'm going to leave this as raw. And so then I'm going to import And so what I've done is I now have this warehouse data imported into my data set. And now this data source is available. So I already have, because I was playing with it last night, and I really did practice for you guys, not thinking about your passwords. So I have a Sam's Club diagram that's already put together. We're only going to focus on this part right here, these last three. So I have my warehouse data. I'm going to drop a whole bunch of variables that I don't need, and then I'm going to run the association analysis. Okay. So had you brought in the entire table, had you not sampled, so quick side note, you could go to the utility. Oh, sample. That's great. I want to sample my data. So I could bring a sample node down, and if I didn't want to use all of my data, I could actually take a sample of it. So here's another place, and here you can actually take the percentage, and you can actually make it a decimal point here. So had I brought in the entire table of 40 million records, and then I wanted to just take a sample of that to actually run my decision tree, here's another place that you could do that sampling process.
But does it load all the data prior to this?
Right, so had you brought in the, so you have your two options. So one is I'm connecting to my database, and as I'm connecting, I'm just going to take a sample from my database. That's going to get your data in a little bit faster. The other option is I'm going to load all my data, and then from all that data, now I'm just going to take a sample of it to actually run my decision tree to make it go faster. So you can do it either way. All right, so there's a sampling node. So what I'm going to do is, here's my warehouse. So these are all the variables that I brought in. So I have a lot of variables. Well, I only need 2 variables to do an association analysis, right? I need to know the transaction ID, and I need to know what variable I'm trying to associate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my data as it is, and I'm going to use this drop node. And so what this drop node is, and so you can find the drop node and the modify option. So under modify is the first one. I know you guys can't follow me because you don't have access to the warehouse data. I apologize. So you can drop, and what you'll do with the drop node is if you go into edit the variables, this actually lets me drop and get rid of everything except the primary description, which is going to be my target variable. And down here at the bottom, my visit number is going to be my ID variable. So I have to have a target, and I have to have an ID. Other than that, you can see that I'm dropping all of the other variables. So now all I have is I've got a target that's the primary description. I've got an ID that is the visit number. And in the association analysis, you actually find it under Explore. And we're going to do an association analysis. So we just drag it down. And then here are some of the options you can change. The minimum or the maximum number of items that we were talking about. Do I want 2? Do I want 4? How many do I want? The minimum confidence and the support percentage that we're looking for. So I'm just going to leave all these as a default. I mean, down here, if you look even farther, that's like the number to keep. So right now, you can keep 200 rules. Right? If you only wanted the top 10 rules, you could change this to 10. And it would keep the top 10 rules. On what criteria, you would actually have to figure that out. So for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm actually going to change this to 100 just so it runs a little bit faster.
1 second.
Yep.
The maximum items is not the antecedent, it's the consequent.
It is the combination of both. So the maximum number of items is how many items are going to be total. So if you did 2, it would be 1 in the antecedent and 1 in the consequence. If we do 4, it can be 1 in the antecedent and 3, 2 and 2, or 3 and 1. So just any combination of 4 items.
But we dropped all those columns in the drop. What?
So I dropped all of the other variables. Like, I don't need to know what time the customer was there. I don't need to know, like, all I need are just the transaction number, and I need the items in the transaction. That's all I need to be able to do an association analysis. It's just 2 columns of data. So I run my association analysis because I already ran it. We're just going to look at the results. And this saves us the trouble of having to see how long it actually takes. Okay. It takes anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes, depending on what I've been running. And so these are kind of the different things that we'll be getting. So this is Sam's Club. And what we're finding out is here we have the percent of confidence and the percent of support. Right? So if we want high support and high confidence, purchasing the Charmin 24 double roll and the Bounty paper towels is going to give us the highest confidence with the highest support. So this is the thing that's happening the most in the data set, and how confident we are that if somebody's buying toilet paper, they're also buying paper towels. It's a good rule to know. Yeah.
So when you do this, you said it's only 2 variables, the ID. Would you include any others?
No.
It has to.
It's just
an
2
ID.
variables. You get an ID variable, and you get a target variable. And your target variable is, in this case, it's the description. The tables that you guys have access to only have item numbers. So you would just be getting item 12384, then item 8692. And so that's less helpful. Yes.
And you said that the way that the whole picture looked doesn't really tell you anything because it's just like it just randomly kind of ordered the rules from like 0 to 100. Okay.
I don't know that it's random. I'm sure there's
Well, yeah,
some
I'm sure
thought
there's-
process that it goes into, but I don't know.
But it's
Organically,
kinda
just
set.
from looking like this, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But so if I chose this item right here, right? So this happens to be, it has the highest support with the highest confident percentage. When I clicked on that, down here, these boxes lit up. So here is our percent confidence. Here is our lift of 9. So we have, what's the little red box? Yep, and then we have our support of 0.63. So it's the same information we're getting up here, but you can get a little bit more information down here in this. So we've got the rule index. Here's just kind of a picture of the support and the confidence. Over to the left here, we've got the left-hand rule and the right-hand rule. So the left hand being if, and the right hand being then. Okay, so if we click on something, this happens to be, the right-hand rule is the advanced primaries type of membership you can get. So if they have the advanced primary, then they have an upcharge. And this is happening 21% of the time. Over here, see if we can get more information about this one. If orange juice, then skim milk.
The other way. The other way. If left.
If left, sorry. So if skim milk, then orange juice.
But we really want the color, right? Yeah, because that's the confidence.
Right, so here the confidence is 100.
So each of those tick marks is really just like a product, right? Like skim milk. Kind of like how we had.
Each of the tick marks is kind of a rule necessarily. Right?
So where they are in that graph doesn't really mean.
Well, so what it's kind of telling you is, so the color is telling you the confidence. This is telling you the left hand and the right hand. So when you find something to like whatever this is right here. So this is, so I'll take it back. It's more of a product, right?
Yeah, so it's got 2%.
So here's our 2%
on
milk.
that tick mark on the y-axis, and then
Here's 2. So this is actually eggs, it looks like. Right, so here's eggs. So with eggs, you get 2% milk with eggs, you get homogenized milk with eggs, you get ground beef with eggs, you get, so here's all the different eggs.
Yeah, so evaluating something like this with this many different products, you really are wanting to look more for color than.
So the color helps as far as the confidence goes, but then it's like once you find a product you're interested in, interested just in apples.
Right.
You can go find apples and see where is that happening in the top 100 words.
Gotcha. And I guess there is too, because like with this we can see there's a lot of rules that involve eggs, and
Right.
and not many for most of the other products.
So here's kind of like your core basic windows, but if you go into view, there's a lot more things you can do. So if you view, let's view our rules. We're interested in these rules, so let's just look at them. So there's a rule matrix. Well, that's what's over here. We've already seen it. There's the statistics line plot. Well, that's down here. We've seen it. The confidence plot. We've got it. But the rules table, here's the rules table. So this was kind of the thing that I screenshot and zoomed in on for you, because I can't screenshot here. So here's the number of relations. So here we just have 2 items. And so here's the rule index, so however it generated the rule index. Here we've got our expected confidence, our confidence support, and any of these things we want to click on, we can sort by that. So if I wanted to sort by the left-hand rule, right? So if I wanted to sort by the if, then I can sort by if 1% milk, or 2% milk, or here's where all the butter comes in. Here's where all the grade A, so here's all the egg. You can always expand this so you can see it better. So here's where all of our large eggs are happening. Yes.
So when you're doing something like this, I mean, before you dropped all the variables except for 2, would you suggest always doing that? Or is there value in leaving them in there? Like, is there any sort of dimension reduction that can happen with this?
If you leave them in there, you will get an error. Like, the association node can only handle 2 variables. It handles your ID variable, it handles your target variable, and that's it.
Okay.
All you have, all you need. So there's no dimensions to reduce, because
Right.
really it's just saying,
Right.
here's the transaction, and here's the variables, have fun with it. And so really this just kind of becomes a, well, what can we find? So the thing that has the biggest lift happens when here's a business secondary renew to a business primary renew. So basically this is saying that if you're renewing a secondary card, then you had to renew a primary card. This is one of those well-duh type of rules, right? So yes, there's 100% confidence, that's great. Huge lift, it happens almost 3,000 times in my data set. But you're like, yeah, if you renewed a secondary, then you renewed a primary. And so any of these things we can sort by lift. And when you're looking at this, you can also sort by the transaction count, right, which will also give you the support. So the support we're getting here is 0.63 for support. But we have how many transactions? Right, so this is still happening about 5,000 times in our data set. So it's our highest confidence, but our support is only at 0.63, just because of the volume of data that we have. So this is what you'll get to play with over spring break. I know, Dr. Wilson. So those are pretty much the fun things to do. The other thing when you can view is you can view the link graph. And that kind of pulls out, here's like the paper towels and stuff. Over here's the card renewals. Here you're finding your eggs and your orange juice. These seem to be the things that are kind of really attaching to a bunch of different. So when you're deciding which rules do you like, this can help you do that.
So with that first rule, the So like it's on a list, but it doesn't really tell us. Is that like a trivial?
Like it's a trivial one, yeah. We're like, yay, but.
Like it's kind of like a
Right. So, great. But how many of you guys got to go work through Dr. Bristow? Oh, look at me, I'm just kidding. I feel like So that's kind of the end of this. So hopefully you will have, you've now got access to the Dillard database, so the decision tree part will be easier. You've seen association analysis. There's a tutorial that'll even get you in more deep if you want to do this, or when you do this for your assignment. This one's not due until after spring break.
Yes.
I didn't talk about collaborative filtering. There's a couple of slides on it if you're interested in it.